morning, everybody. Welcome to the College Football Kickoff Show here on the Woodward Sports Network. Myself, Adham, Beydoun, joined by Booner and Flannel Sam.
What's
up, Sam?
Hey.
I got a bunch of Michigan people in here today. I'm not comfortable. What is it, 3-on-1, right? Yeah. He's a Michigan fan, too. We have Fletch, Flannel, and Booner.
I'll go.
I would say after last week, you can come to this side if you want.
No, I'm good. I'm good where I'm at. Look, I am an objective Michigan State fan this season, all right? You have to understand. Mel Tucker took over a dumpster fire, caught lightning in a bottle, I don't know how, his second year. This is what the team is. I'm not going to kill him for it.
That's fair, but at the same time, when you win 11 games, albeit ahead of schedule, that comes expectations. And Michigan State fans aren't really used to those kind of expectations. They usually can kind of fly under the radar, and everything they do is a miracle. So this year, they're getting a little bit of humble pie, and I kind of appreciate it.
Yeah, whatever. Shut the hell
up. You're always welcome over here. You're always welcome.
No, we'll pass. I like where I'm at on the table. Don't worry. It's still a young season. Having said that, guys, college football, there's a lot of good matchups this weekend, a lot of ranked opponents, but we'll start with what everybody is talking about, where top 5 teams go to die. Your school, Michigan. They will be traveling to Iowa in a top 5 matchup where over the last 6 games, fellas, Iowa has won 5 of them. The only time they lost, I believe, was to Penn State 21-19. That was 5 or 6 years ago. This is a tough game. I'll share my predictions of what I think of J.J. McCarthy in the offense and what I think they'll do moving forward. Donovan Edwards, by the way, is healthy. But walk me through the game, guys. Michigan, Iowa, are you concerned with the potential upset this early in the season?
I personally, I'm not that concerned, just over the fact I think this Iowa team and the defense, and Sam, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they're a little bit overrated. Everyone is on the Iowa defense this year, but when I did the research here, I looked at the offenses that they've played against, and they're all outside. There's like 79th, 99th, 120th, and then an FCS offense there. So I'm not that worried, to be honest. I think this is going to be a completely different offense that Iowa's going up against, and I don't think they can handle it, to be completely honest. And their offense, Iowa's offense, is so bad. They're literally total yards in college football. They're dead last. I think this Michigan defense is just going to have a field day today. And I think this offense, with Edwards back, I think it's going to be – I'm taking the Michigan spread today, minus 10.5. I think that's just a lock. I don't see how they don't cover. I know it's on the road, but it's not a night game in Iowa. It's a day game. It's probably going to be popping. Everyone's going to be there. We know what the crowd's like there, but I don't see Michigan. I think it's a 2 or 3 touchdown game, to be completely honest.
I would agree with that. The only way that Iowa can win this game is if they turn Michigan over and convert one of those turnovers directly into a touchdown, like a pick 6 or a fumble return for a touchdown. This Iowa offense might be the single worst offense I've ever seen in college football. And the Michigan offense is one of the best I think they've ever had, at least personnel-wise. And you have Donovan Edwards coming back. You have Blake Corum coming off of one of the best games by a Michigan running back of all time. So I think that Michigan is going to lean heavily on their run game because they don't want to turn the football over. I know that Jim Harbaugh is going to kind of want to play this game in a box. But I also think that J.J. McCarthy is going to need to make a couple of big throws, a couple of plays. Of course, play clean, don't be careless, but I would like to see maybe a couple play-action rollouts where maybe he can throw the ball down the field to a Ronnie Bell, maybe get Andrew Anthony involved in the game, Cornelius Johnson. So my final score prediction, and I'll just give it now, Michigan wins 24-7 because I think they will play clean. I think Iowa might get one short field and kind of luck into a touchdown, but I think Michigan will win this game easily as long as they play good, clean football and they're just consistently getting 4 yards on the ground, 5 yards on the ground.
Well, let me say this. J.J. McCarthy last week, his first Big Ten start ever as the Michigan quarterback, and it was really good and really confusing and really concerning as well. A lot of erratic plays, trying to be a hero, holding on to the ball too long, trying to be perfect. He does that against Iowa. They will punish him. And you're going to need Mr. Check Down underneath, take what the defense gives you, run the ball, rely on your offensive line. That's what it's going to take to beat Iowa. They're not going to give you much over the top. Having said that, I would agree. I think Michigan are going to pummel Iowa today. I think 34-10.
Well, and to counter that, J.J. McCarthy also heavily used Luke Schoonmaker last week. He was his check down. He was his security blanket. So J.J. McCarthy did take what the defense gave him when he had to. He missed some throws deep, but he also connected on the biggest throw of the game to Ronnie Bell when Michigan needed it most after Maryland had cut the lead to 5 when it was 3rd and 6. A beautiful throw. He also had that absolute strike to Roman Wilson when they were up 17-13, a 20-yard touchdown pass. And previously on that drive, a big throw to Ronnie Bell. J.J. McCarthy will be just fine. I know he had that fumble that was recovered by Michigan. I know he had that bad throw kind of going across the field where the Maryland player landed out of bounds. That was a little bit concerning. But I think for the most part that Michigan, a lot of Michigan people and people who are detractors from Michigan are kind of overblowing the struggles a little bit. J.J. McCarthy was still 18 of 26, 220 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. I heard a lot of chatter from people on Monday, and I actually got pretty heated before the show, that said, oh, it's just like Cade McNamara. Cade McNamara would have played just like that. I got news for you guys. Through the first 4 games of last season, Cade McNamara still had not completed 10 passes in a game. J.J. McCarthy will be just fine, I believe.
So the J.J. McCarthy factor, I think, is the biggest thing, right? You don't want to turn the ball over, but he hasn't turned the ball over yet this season.
He hasn't.
He's taking care of the football, something I was told he cannot do. Now, he has a very difficult test, his first road start ever in his career. No more difficult matchup than on the road as a top 5 team against Iowa. You're putting him to the litmus test here. We're all going to find out, hey, can he do it? I think he's going to step up. I believe in the kid. Having said that, though, I can't make excuses for him either. The same way I treated Cade last year, the same way I'm going to treat JJ now that he's the starter. Hey, kid, you have to do more. You have to step up. You can't play erratically. You can't try and throw those magical throws across the field. It's just unnecessary. It's not a good thing. You're really setting yourself up for failure. And you don't want to put your team in a bad spot. And how can Iowa's offense, which sucks, how can they punish you? Giving them a short field.
Yeah, give them a short field.
That's it. That's all they got. And look, their defense through 4 games, I have to say, Iowa has been historic. First time since 1935 they've held the first 4 opponents to 10 or more or fewer points. Excuse me. It's a big game, but I think the big games, the big players step up. I'm looking for J.J. McCarthy to have his best game as a Michigan Wolverine.
Yeah, and the fact too that Donovan Edwards is back too. You talked about it here with the dump offs and kind of some screen plays here. That's going to be huge for him because that's what Edwards does. Is he's a guy that comes out of the backfield, can make a play, get a catch out of the backfield, and he's going to be huge. The fact we have him back on the road here versus Iowa is going to be game-changing. And this is a week for JJ that he has to prove to us. He won that starting job. He has to prove that this is why he won this starting job. It is the fact that he beat Cade out for this, and he has to win games on the road. He has to. These are games he has to win.
Do you think this is fair of me to say? If Cade McNamara is the starting quarterback on the road against Iowa, would you believe with under 5 minutes left you would have an opportunity to win?
Yeah, because Michigan's roster is just better than Iowa's.
Well, would Cade make any decision you would think that would really put you out of the game? No, correct? But, hear me out, where I'm getting at with this final is, this is what we were sold, and this is what I have been selling of JJ. I don't want, we're going to run the ball 45 times, we're going to play the clock, and we're going to just play, clean football, and we're going to win this game. You're on the road against Iowa. You want to know how you kill them? You jump out 7, 10-0, 14-0, 17-0. That's what you do. That's what I'm looking for J.J. McCarthy to do. If it was Cade McNamara starting today, I'd say, all right, 17-13 Michigan, 13-10 Michigan, 14-10 Michigan. They'll barely come out. The run game will be very responsible now that they have Donovan Edwards back. Cade McNamara, he will have the ability to expose their zone coverage down the field. He will be able to take advantage of single high safety. He will be able to throw the ball deep to the sidelines, deep to the middle of the field, and expose the Iowa defense. Because I know for damn sure C.J. Stroud would. I know for damn sure Bryce Young would. J.J. McCarthy, to me, is the best quarterback talent you have had in the last 20, 30 years.
Probably longer than that,
Probably
honestly.
longer than that, to be honest. Show me I've put it all out on the table for J.J. McCarthy up until now. I'm not going to sit here and say, 17-10 Michigan conservative. No, you have the better quarterback. You have the better offense. Go crush them.
Absolutely.
Go make a statement.
Absolutely. You and I, Adam, have been the biggest supporters of J.J. McCarthy probably at this network. But so far through the season, the only game where he has really, I would say, showed the big playability consistently was against Hawaii. And you don't get points for that. You just don't, because Hawaii really is that bad. On the road against Iowa, I would like to see J.J. McCarthy get unleashed, because you're right. C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young would expose this Iowa secondary, even a one that is pretty good. And J.J. McCarthy, I still feel like the game plan for him has been kind of play this game in a phone booth. They haven't really unleashed him, and maybe Harbaugh doesn't trust him as much as he should. This is the game, though, against an Iowa team that is opportunistic at least. Don't give them an opportunity to be opportunistic. Step on their throats early, like you said, Adam. If it's 14-0, is Iowa getting to 14 points this whole game? I think no, unless Michigan State is just careless with the football. So just get on them early. Let's hope this game is over after like the first quarter. It's already 14-0. That's what
Robinson is showing up in the chat, and I would vehemently disagree with that. Denard Robinson, for all his talent, was a running back.
He was absolutely a running back. He's the best running back in Michigan history.
And I loved watching him. Yep. He was phenomenal. He was a running back. J.J. McCarthy can drive the football down the field. He can throw those 15-yard comeback routes to the sideline. He can throw the out routes. He can throw every route. We used to praise Cade for the Roman Wilson bubble screens. This guy has done it just as effectively, if not better. But we don't say anything. J.J. McCarthy it's clear, night and day. He can do everything. I'm sorry. Yes, it's on the road to Iowa. Yes, the history of top 5 teams going there and not having success. I'm sorry. I look at you as a very talented quarterback. I think you have a very, very talented roster. The personnel around you on offense is probably the best it's ever been. I'm not interested in a 13-10 game. I'm not. Now, if you have to play check down, the defense shows up. They're making it difficult for you. I can live with it if you don't make mistakes. But if you start making mistakes, look, we're back in the same square one situation.
Yep.
Hey, Michigan has a ceiling. You're trying to beat Georgia. You're trying to beat Bama, Clemson, Ohio State, USC. You got to show me. USC, they showed me on the road against Oregon State last week that they can tough it out. I don't mind if Michigan has to tough it out. But it can't come in stupid turnovers, fumbling the ball, trying to run around a million times, throwing an erratic interception when you're in scoring position. You can't do this. This is what we're going to watch for J.J. McCarthy tonight.
Yeah, and if there's one more thing, too, on this game that we have to see, I think, is last week Blake Corum had 30 carries. If we want to take that next step to be able to beat the Ohio State again this year, to compete with those other teams in the college football playoffs, this is a game where he needs to go on the road. JJ needs to go on the road and make these plays. Last week we saw he missed a ton of these throws down the field, just either long or short. Like he missed a couple throws that he usually should make that we saw versus Hawaii that he makes. We're not going to be able to rely on a Blake Corum to get 30 carries every single weekend to go beat an Ohio State. If we do get to a college football to do that versus Georgia, Alabama, it just won't happen. And we've seen that with other teams around the country. You can't rely on that run game. JJ has to step up, and I do think it's a big game for him to be able to show us, hey, we're taking this next step. We're not just going to run the ball with Corum 30 times like we did last week to be able to do that.
Which surprised me, by the way. I didn't think he was capable of being that bell cow Hassan Haskins.
That is one of the biggest takeaways I actually had from last week. Blake Corum had one of the best games a Michigan running back has ever had. Yep. And I was absolutely shocked by that. I thought he was more of a change of pace kind of back, which makes me even more comfortable about the Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards tandem. But you guys are both right. J.J. McCarthy, he eventually needs to show that he can be that quarterback that can make all the throws downfield, that can maybe have a game where he throws for 350 yards and 4 touchdowns, because you might need that when you go on the road to Ohio State to end the season. One of the biggest reasons why I know you and I, Adam, wanted J.J. McCarthy to start, not just because he's clearly the better talent, it's because I don't think the Michigan defense is nearly as good as it was last year. You're seeing that you can't just plug and play guys on the defensive line. They're not just going to be Ojabo and Hutchinson. And you're seeing that throughout the first few games of the season. They already gave up 27 points to Maryland, which Michigan didn't give up that many points that often last year. I think they only did it 3 times, 4 if you count Georgia. So I'm really looking to see. This is J.J. McCarthy's, I think, first, I wouldn't call it a test, but you have to play well against this game. He still hasn't had that wow game. He had it against Hawaii, but you're not going to give him points for Hawaii. He needs to do it against Big Ten competition, or else some people might say, even if they do win like 17-10 or 21-10 even, and are just kind of conservative, Cade McNamara could have done that, and I trust Cade McNamara not to turn the football over. That's not what I think. I think that's absurd, but you know you're going to hear stuff like that if that's the result of this Iowa game, even if they win.
I think that's very fair. I want to move on. Michigan State on the road to Maryland. Michigan State have sucked this year, and they can't run the football. They're 13-1 under Mel Tucker when they run for over 100 yards. But the reality is I have nothing to offer with Michigan State at the moment. The wide receiving core, is going to be healthy this weekend? We like to believe so. The secondary, Scott Hazelton, I always reference it. If this was the 1300s, we would have hung him publicly. But, here we are in 2022. I can't do anything like that. Fair enough. They suck. But that comes with context. I think they're being punished a bit for overachieving last year. Going into the season, what did we talk about? They were a 6-win team, and it would have been like, all right, they're going in the right direction. Chick-fil-A Bowl, 11-2, beat Michigan. Come on. Now they're being held to a standard they're not ready for yet. Fair or unfair, I don't care. I can understand both sides. But the reality is, Michigan State have a tough game, and they fall to 2-3. Damn. I'm going to have to talk about them losing to Ohio State, losing to Michigan, losing at the end of the year to Penn State. You're talking a 6-6, maybe a 5-7 football team this year. And that's not ideal. But I also have to say, you know what? They've invested in NIL. They've forked up the big money, which most of college football was shocked that they even had the money to do something like that. And they're trying to push their way into the upper echelon. But you got to win. But I also have to be very mindful. He took over an awful situation. Lightning in a bottle with Kenneth Walker, whatever you want to define it, sure. That only, jumped them forward more. But you look at the 23, 24, 25 classes. It's actually looking good. But they're not there yet. How do I objectively look at Michigan State and look you in the face and tell you, hey, they're a really good football team this year? Because they're not. The defense is atrocious. The offense has its moments, but nothing consistent. Nothing I'm going to lose sleep over as an opposing defense. Michigan State are in trouble right now.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think what you said perfectly, that when you're sitting there and you look at the 11-win season last year, that it set a standard going into this year that they had to hit. But realistically, when we look at it, I think it's even worse than that, because they're literally, at this point, if they lose the game today, they could potentially lose 3 or 4 straight games with Ohio State, Wisconsin, Michigan. And then you get into a little part of your schedule there where it's Illinois, Rutgers, and Indiana. You're one loss in that little span there away from missing a bowl game. And no matter what, if you're going from 11 wins to this year, like, Michigan State, you should be going to a bowl game every single year, no matter what. And if you lose to Illinois or Rutgers or Indiana, you have that little space for a gap there that you can lose and not make a bowl game. That's a worry to me. Whether anything's going on with Tucker or the secondary, whatever's going on there, I don't care about that 11-win season at this point. You have to win 6 games and get to a bowl game, whether you like it or not. And I don't think, it's pretty simple here. You look at the schedule. That could easily happen. They don't make a bowl game to where if they lose one of those 3 games, they're sitting on the outside looking in.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And many, many things can be true. Mel Tucker did take over a bad situation that Mark D'Antonio kind of left bare. I will give him that. They did overachieve. They did catch lightning in a bottle with Kenneth Walker, who I think was even better than most people even realize.
Retroactively should be given the Heisman for last year, by the way.
Hey, I mean, at least be in New York for damn sure. I mean, he won that Michigan game by himself, with an offensive line that wasn't great. He covered up a multitude of sins. And I agree with you, Adam. They overachieved big time. They're not ready to swim in those waters yet. That being said, after the first couple games, is Jacoby Windman still the second coming of Aiden Hutchinson? I know it's crickets now, but still. Are Berger and Broussard just going to go right in and make up for Kenneth Walker? No, those are just dudes. This team is just not, like when I say dudes, I mean just regular guys, in my opinion. Kenneth Walker was a space cadet.
Kenneth Walker, arguably the greatest player in Michigan State history.
I made a statement, I think on your show a while back, that Kenneth Walker, in my opinion, had the single greatest season by a Michigan State athlete since Magic Johnson. And I stand by that because that's how great he was. That's how impactful he was. And honestly, looking at the start to this season, let's look at their offense. I think Kenneth Walker maybe made Peyton Thorne's job a lot easier. Maybe Peyton Thorne is not quite as good as we thought. I know losing Jalen Naylor is big, but Keon Coleman and Trey Mosley, wide receivers are where I think is one of their strengths. But of course, we got to talk about the Michigan State defense. And before I get to that, if Michigan State loses to Maryland, their season has a chance, I think a very good chance, of just death spiraling. I think they could start 2-6. If they beat Maryland, maybe Michigan State's season could be something. Maybe they could win 7 or 8. But that being said, I don't think Michigan State beats Maryland. Maryland has a good offense. You got Taulia Tagovailoa, who is I think he's a good quarterback. They have a running game that was actually doing pretty well against Michigan, and then they went away from it. And what Maryland also has that is going to scare Michigan State and abuse them, they've got receivers. They've got Rakeem Jarrett, who was a 900-yard receiver last year and a former 5-star. You've got Jacob Copeland, who was a transfer from Florida, who was really good at Florida and has proven to make up, I think, the best set of weapons that Taulia Tagovailoa has ever had. So Michigan State is in big trouble. I think you can chalk it up to an extent to Mel Tucker overachieving.
Can we have an honest conversation, though?
Yes.
I know a lot of you in the chat are going towards the direction of, well, look what Harbaugh did year 2. Let's be very objective and honest with ourselves here. Who was Jim Harbaugh prior to being hired by Michigan?
He
3-time NFC
Yep.
championship game head coach.
Yep.
Won one of them, got to a Super Bowl. Prior made stand for a relevant program. Prior to that, had always won anywhere he had been. Then what? Comes to Michigan. Let's be honest, Michigan is, in my opinion, a top 5 brand and program in the country. Nobody can change my mind. I think that program, when it's winning, there are very few programs out there that can draw more attention. And you saw it in the ratings last year. Michigan had 5 of the top 10 most viewed games during the season last year.
Yep.
Outside of the college football playoff. The Michigan State game was up there, the Ohio State game. Every single game they play is a big deal when they're good. And he walks in, and they start with the top 5, top 10 recruiting classes. Here we go. It's Jim Harbaugh, Rashawn Gary. We saw everything coming out. And then what happened? He won 10 games his first year, 10-3. And then they were basically a game away from getting to a Big Ten championship game.
Yep.
And that continued, and it continued, and it was 10 wins almost every year. And then the COVID year. And people started to doubt him, which made no sense to me. Even though he's consistently getting you where you never have been in your program. And then he finally delivers a Big Ten championship. That is a whole different level of coaching. We're talking Dabo Swinney, Nick Saban. We're talking Lincoln Riley. Jim Harbaugh's up there in that conversation. Mel Tucker is not. Mel Tucker is yet to prove he can be a consistent coach over a 5, 7, 10-year span. He needs time, though.
Yep.
And let's be real here. The talent you're bringing in at Michigan, year to year, has been better than Michigan State.
Always.
Michigan State are trying to do what Oregon did all the way back in the early 2000s, late 90s. They're trying to become something. That's what State's doing. They're trying to take advantage of all the few good years they had under D'Antonio and the Big Ten championships, the big wins. They've won 10 of 14 against Michigan. But the reality is what they're trying to do is very difficult. Is Mel Tucker that guy? Is he a Lincoln Riley? No, he's not. Can he be? I don't know. I've got not even 20-game sample size of him. What do you want me to do with that?
I mean, but here's what I won't let Michigan State fans do. You can't have it both ways, because all I heard coming into the season was Tuck coming, Tuck coming, Tuck coming. He takes pictures with cigars in cars. Oh, he's such a great recruiter. I mean, obviously being 2-0 against Michigan is a real thing, but all I heard in transfer portal. So Michigan State fans, I'm not going to let you guys get away with the complete about face of, oh, they were never supposed to be anything anyway. I agree logically that they overachieved a lot last year, and they don't have the
fan
talent.
talk, right? You know, my job isn't to be a fan. My job is to talk about the reality of this program. And look, I think what Michigan State did last year was nothing short of special.
It was.
That was beyond special. I mean, that was... I really don't know how to quantify a season like that. And you expect them to win 8 games, 9 games after a season like that, because there's no way they were going to win 11 the following year. But now we're talking a 7-win, 6-win team at the moment. I am concerned.
Would you expect, so it's such a weird scenario, but if the Kenneth Walker situation last year didn't happen and you come into this year looking at the roster they have, would you expect Adham, the win total and all of that? Obviously it's not going to be the same, but would you expect them to lose?
I didn't expect a 5-6 win drop-off, no. I didn't expect a 5-6 win drop-off. Why? Coaching matters, guys.
Yep.
Lincoln Riley has USC as college football playoff contenders right now. You think Mel Tucker could have gone there and done that? You think even Jim Harbaugh could have gone to USC and done that?
I mean, getting Caleb Williams and Jordan Addison.
I don't
and Mario
think he would have been
Williams
able to do that. But
I understand.
I don't think he would be able to do that. I don't think you get Jordan Addison, Caleb Williams, all these amazing recruits to come to your program. I don't think you have that offense that they would have that quickly. They were a 4-win team last season. There are a certain amount of coaches that are on a short list that you would die for.
Yep.
Lincoln Riley, for me, is one of them.
I agree.
And if I was a Michigan fan, and let's say I was done with Harbaugh, he would be my first look. But Harbaugh, let's be real, has been a phenomenal coach. At Michigan, they're looking to repeat this year. I'm sorry, dude. I know you may disagree. Your program, for all the praise I will give it, what Harbaugh has done in his 8-year period can stack up with anybody else's.
I mean, but he didn't beat Ohio State until 2021. He struggled against Michigan State. And I know what Michigan...
Lincoln Riley wouldn't have beaten Ohio State if he was the Michigan coach. Maybe he would have done it sooner. I'll tell you why. Who had to walk in and deal with Urban Meyer? Who was first year undefeated, they were under penalties, it didn't matter. Then a 12-win season, then a 13-win season. Ohio State under Urban, some of the best football teams we've seen ever.
Best Ohio State.
And then you go to
ever.
Ryan Day's Ohio State. Well, they're a little soft at the line of scrimmage.
True.
They're not like Urban Meyer's teams. And they're not coached like Urban Meyer coached them. Urban Meyer, to me, is a top 5 coach of all time.
Yes.
You can't undervalue what he did at Utah, Florida, then coming to Ohio State. If Urban Meyer went to USC, if Urban Meyer went to Texas, he went to Oklahoma, he went anywhere, they would win. He's one of those coaches. Ryan Day, this is about time for Jim. I mean, damn. I have to go up against, imagine going up against Nick Saban every year. That is the equivalent of Urban Meyer, but at a lesser level. Kirby Smart finally broke the hump, right? He got over the hump. He finally broke through. But we don't criticize Kirby.
We did.
We did, but we're nitpicking. It's like, beat Alabama already. Wow, that's easy. They've lost 7 times in the last 14 years.
Yeah, I'm with Adham on this. I mean, Ryan Day is not anything near what Urban Meyer was at Ohio State, and he's not going to be. Like, I think just the fact that Harbaugh's putting us in positions to where at this point every year now we're expecting to go into that Ohio State game undefeated to at least try and compete for a Big Ten title. And I think we can do that.
How many times under Harbaugh have you walked into the last game of the year? If you would have beaten Ohio State, you would have been Big Ten champs. 4 times?
I think 2016, 2018 for sure. I don't know about 2019.
I think it's 4 times, including last year.
Yeah,
So more than half of his tenure, he had you going into the final game of the year ranked in the top 10, going up against a number 2, number 1, number 3 Ohio State.
But to be fair, in 2018 and 2019, and you may want to blame Don Brown for this, I think he had a lot to do with it, Michigan lost in biblical fashions.
I agree, and you know what the problem I had with Michigan at the time was Harbaugh's loyalty to Don Brown. What happened? Mike McDonald, excuse me, I've been saying McDaniel all week because of the Tua news. Anyways, Mike McDonald shows up, boom. It all clicks. And the defense, by the way, they're running this year is still very similar to what they did last year. Nothing changed. Same scheme. Everything is the same. I like this defense. I think they're capable of dealing with an Ohio State, but the line of scrimmage, that's how you're going to win those games. That's why they lost to Georgia. So, yeah, look, I like to give Harbaugh the benefit of the doubt at times, but we also have to put your program into perspective, just like Michigan State. Is Mel Tucker one of the 5 best coaches in college football? I don't think so, no.
No.
If I'm Alabama, Nick Saban left today, is Mel Tucker on my short list? No, he's not. He's maybe in my top 10 because I think his connections in the South are a big deal. If I was at LSU, I would consider Mel Tucker. Even Georgia, but Bama, I mean, you're talking a whole program changing. Once Saban goes, you're going to have a new identity. LSU, Bama, that's NFL talent every year. Georgia now. The state of your programs, Michigan, Michigan State, doesn't matter who. It's in the hands of the head coach. They're the owner, they're the CEO, they're the president, they're the manager, they're everything.
And for the record, moving forward, I like Jim Harbaugh as the coach moving forward because he finally delivered in 2021. They finally beat Ohio State and won the Big Ten championship. I would like to see him beat Mel Tucker this year, which I think they will. I think they'll actually blow them out. So, but,
you don't want to hear my game call for that one.
You think Michigan State will win?
No, you guys. I don't want to spoil it, but I guess I should. I've got Michigan winning that game 49-13.
I mean, in 2019, Michigan needed a win against Michigan State. They needed to make a statement. They went in 44-10. I actually expect something like that too, but we'll see as time goes on.
And I don't think I'm crazy for that one. And as much as it kills me this year because I've really dedicated myself to State, the reality is I don't see them winning 3 straight against Michigan, and it hasn't happened in decades.
Well, and if that happens, Michigan State fans, is Tuck indeed still coming? Because that's all I heard in the offseason. Michigan State fans were beating their chests like a mofo.
Yeah, but, if we would have attached the label to Harbaugh, right? If we had a marketing, something like that along those lines where Harbaugh coming or something, right? You would have waited 7 years for him to come, right?
Hey, that is
fair?
Yes,
That's
absolutely.
Very fair point.
So
yeah.
I think perspective a little bit. I think Michigan fans have every right to dog Michigan State right now. But perspective a little bit, it is year technically 2 of a full season for Mel Tucker. I'm not losing faith or hope that he can build this program. I think he has the tools to do it.
And I want to put it on record. I actually believe that Mel Tucker will be the coach for Michigan State moving forward, will be the guy that becomes one of the best coaches in school history, becomes like another Mark D'Antonio. And he did have a phenomenal year last year. He has to give a lot of thanks to Kenneth Walker. But still, this year, if they don't even make a bowl game, which I think is possible, I don't know, some of the shine is going to come off, even from Michigan State fans.
I love this comment by Cody.
Oh,
who's got it better than us? Nobody! Remember that? Well, everybody had it better than you for 7 years.
They did.
So I guess you could use that. That's a great one, Cody.
Hey, but
well
remember,
done.
last year, a lot of that nonsense kind of died down, and that's one of the things I really liked about this team, along with having Mike McDonald as the defensive coordinator other than Don Brown. So they just seemed a little bit more humble. They seemed more focused. They I think Jim Harbaugh as a whole took a lot of humble pie in 2020. I mean, he got a pay cut because he sucked so bad. And then in 2021, he finally delivered.
Look, again, the reality is Michigan State, it's not the year to, beat your chest and really go, but the reality is this is a rebuild. We all knew it was. And that's why we had 8 wins going into the season. And it might be less than that. And you're going to have to just put your hard hat on as a Michigan State fan and deal with it. You've won the last 2 matchups against Michigan. It's probably not happening this year. If it does, holy hell. That would be a major upset. I think Michigan probably gets 17.5 points going into that game.
And I would take it. I would probably take it, too.
And the reality is, Michigan State, sorry, it doesn't look like it's going to be your year.
Yep.
You are going to lose to Ohio State. Maybe, who knows, maybe you do pull off the upset against Ohio State. I'd give you more of a chance against them than Michigan, given that you haven't beaten them yet. You factor all of that. You've beaten Michigan now twice in a row, whatever you want to factor in. The reality is it's not the year for Michigan State, and that's okay. That's okay because they're building something, and they're working towards something. Now, they go 3, 4, 5 wins next year and 7 the following year. You're looking at Mel Tucker like, dude, no one's coming right now, right?
Yeah.
But we're not there yet. So I'm not ready to jump ship on a Michigan State team that we knew going into last season was a rebuild. And the fact that, like you said, lightning in a bottle, that doesn't excuse, that we didn't have a rebuild. That's like being able to sign the 7 best players in the NFL on a 1-year deal, your first year in the NFL as a coach. You go, you do it, you have a 10, 11, 12 win season, and then they all leave, and you're left with nothing. And it's like, we might be 5-12 this year, guys.
So did Mel Tucker hurt himself in a way by winning that many games last year?
No, I think he elevated Michigan State's brand appeal, right?
For sure.
You're seeing it in the recruiting cycle right now.
Which is good, but I think this year they're 2-2. They're just fighting for a bowl game right now, and they have to get that. Or then you have to take a step back and look at the full picture there if they don't make a bowl game.
Fair
Coming
enough.
off an 11-win season.
Fair enough. All right, I want to go around the room. Game predictions: Michigan State. Let's start with Michigan. Who wins? Michigan, Iowa.
Michigan wins 24-7.
Boom.
Michigan wins 35-7.
Interesting. I'm going 34-10 Michigan. Michigan State at Maryland. Flannel.
I go Maryland 38, Michigan State 24.
Boom.
Maryland 27, Michigan State 17.
All right. We are going to have a redemption week. Michigan State 23, Maryland 20. I think they claw it out.
Wow.
I think they claw it out. I think a lot of mistakes will be made in this game. Tagovailoa. This is total bias right now. I can't see this team 2-3 to start the year, so I have no choice but to pick them. Let's go Kentucky, Ole Miss. That's a big game. Ranked opponents. Flannel, who you got?
I've got Ole Miss. I love their running game. You've got one of the best running backs in the country in Zach Evans. You've got that freshman in Jenkins. I really like this Ole Miss team at home. This is the game where Lane Kiffin finally has that really big signature win. Give me Ole Miss.
I like it, Booner.
I really like Kentucky in this. We talked about it before, getting 7.5. I got it last night at 7.5. I think it might have moved to 6.5, but I love Kentucky in this spot. I think Will Levis is going to have his game to where it's the NFL scouts, everyone's going to be watching this game, and he needs to have that game to kind of take that next step to become a top 10 pick and what everyone thought he was going to be. I think he does that. They also have their number one running back. He was suspended, I believe, the first 4 games. Chris Rodriguez is back in this game. I love Kentucky. I think you can even go money line on this, plus 200. That was one of my dogs of the week, was Kentucky to beat Ole Miss. I just don't think Ole Miss has it with Lane Kiffin. I think he's changed that program around a ton, but I just don't. I think Kentucky's just too much for them.
Fair enough. Look, the reality is, I think Kentucky can win this football game. Ole Miss, for some reason, Lane Kiffin, they just lose the big games. This is a big game for them. I'm going to ride with Kentucky winning by a field goal. By the way, just FYI, I have to throw this out there. If Michigan State lose like 55-20, it's not going to be good. So let's hope I'm right.
I told you the door's closed to the Michigan fan base after this week.
Yeah.
You're welcome. If they lose by 40, you're
Michigan
welcome
lose,
back.
God help you guys on Monday. Anyways. Having said that, moving on. USC, Arizona State. Are you guys taking them to cover? Because I am.
Oh, absolutely. Arizona State is a dumpster fire this year.
Just fired Herm Edwards.
Yes, just fired Herm Edwards. And USC, they did not have a good game last week. They kind of pulled it out in the end. They showed a lot of toughness and grit. This is the game where the offense goes back to being explosive. Look for Caleb Williams to throw like 4 or 5 touchdown passes in this game. USC rolls.
Yeah, right. I agree with Sam. I love USC, both of you guys, with that. We've been on USC every single Saturday so far this season. Last week we were on them, and they struggled versus Oregon State on the road. Arizona State is a really bad program right now. Like, they're with the Herm Edwards situation. They had coaches giving away play. Like, they just had a whole bad situation going on there. I love USC. I think they have to have a bounce back week. It's 25 points. I think it's you could do an alternate spread of like 35, and you probably still will hit this game. I don't think this is close. And like you said, Caleb Williams is going to have that game. He struggled last week, and he's in these Heisman talks, and he can't have a week like he did last week. He has to make up for it this week, and I mean, it's the perfect spot to do so.
All right, NC State, final game of the weekend. NC State on the road at Clemson. Number 10 versus number 5. Huge matchup. What do you got?
Clemson absolutely rolls this game. They're coming back home. DJ Uiagalelei, last year he did more to hurt a good program than I think I've ever seen a quarterback do. This year he has figured it out. They still have that defensive line with 2 top 10 potential draft picks, the linebacker and Trenton Simpson. Their running game looks like they've picked up steam. And NC State, they're kind of a fugazi, I think. Every single year, they're like kind of that team that sort of creeps around. They might upset a Clemson once in a while when Clemson goes to their building. Clemson's at home. Clemson has figured it out. They still have Dabo Swinney. They are still the most talented team in the ACC by a mile. Give me Clemson, 3 touchdown win.
Sam and I are opposite ends all day today. I'm on NC State. They
Are you on drugs?
They beat Clemson last year. They have the same quarterback. He threw for 4 touchdowns last year on them. The same offensive line's back. I think they have kind of. They're not going to win the game, but they're definitely going to cover out. You're getting 6.5, 7 points. I just don't think this NC State team, they literally, like, this is a playoff game right here, and they have to prove it. I think that this is like an opportunity for that program to take that next step.
I've doubted the Clemson quarterback all season. He shut me up last week. I'm not betting against him this week at home. Clemson have a phenomenal home record under Dabo Swinney. I'm not betting against it. Yes, you're giving them the points. I'm not. Clemson to win by 2 touchdowns. Give me Clemson against NC State, and that'll wrap up today. Flannel, thank you so much. You were phenomenal.
Thank you.
Booner, hell of a job. Well done. Fletch, thanks so much for coming in on a Saturday and knocking this out for us. Well, that is it. Enjoy the rest of your college football Saturday. Michigan at noon. Michigan State, God, please. Having said that, you all have a good rest of your weekend. Lions play tomorrow. Make sure you're tuning in live 11 a.m. here on the Woodward Sports Network, the Detroit Lions pregame show, and we're out of here.
Make sure you download the Woodward Sports app in the App Store and the Google Play Store today. Take Woodward Sports with you wherever you go and listen live on your phone or mobile device.